evil in the world today.
Right.
Good and evil. And we see evidences of this. Talking to Martin Mawyer right now, author of Twilight in America, the untold story of Islamic terrorist training camps inside America. Martin, welcome to our program.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Ed. Glad to be here.
What's your credentials here in writing about this, Martin?
Well, we produced a film documentary a number of years ago regarding these Islamic terrorist camps over the United States. It was called Homegrown Jihad.
Yes.
We had spoken with many in law enforcement. We were actually able to get some secretive footage that was filmed inside of these camps that were leaked to us through law enforcement, which made for a rather interesting and frightening documentary. But we had so much leftover information that, you just can't include in 1 hour, and we thought law enforcement and especially law enforcement in small towns where these Islamic camps begin to pop up, they need to know the full story behind this particular group. And I decided to, put it down into a book.
Let me ask you about that, Martin, because I live in most Americans, while the large cities, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just saying most Americans live in rural America or in small town America. And it seems to me if there was an Islamic training camp within 50 miles of Tupelo, where I live, word would get out, okay? And I'm just thinking, how many of these camps are there, and how come people don't know about them, but you do? And I'm not diminishing your work. I'm just asking a question.
Actually, if you go to the areas where these camps exist, the neighbors do know that they are there.
Okay.
And they are very fearful of these compounds and camps that are located in their neighborhoods. And law enforcement, as a general rule, is also fearful of these camps that are located inside of the areas. So it's not as if it's a secret. These camps do exist. They've been in the United States since the late 80s. They continue to grow. They're being populated by a group called Muslims of the Americas, which used to be called Jamaat al-Fukra through law enforcement. The State Department says that these anybody can go online, first of all, go to the State Department terrorist watch list, punch in Jamaat al-Fukra, and it'll basically tell you the brief what you need to know about these groups, that they're located in rural America, and that the goal of this particular group is to purify Islam through violence. That's the words of the U.S. State Department. So it's not exactly as they are a secret. They have about 3 dozen around the United States, so if you don't live around one, you probably never heard of this particular group or these camps before. And even though your listeners probably never heard of Muslims of the Americas or Jamaat al-Fukra, they have heard of Daniel Pearl. Daniel Pearl was the Wall Street Journal reporter who was on his way to interview the leader of these American-based compounds in Pakistan. He wanted to talk to Sheikh Jilani, that's the guy in Pakistan, about his associations with Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, and these Islamic compounds in the United States when he was kidnapped and then beheaded and dismembered. So, this is not as secretive as a group as one might think.
Well, Muslims of the Americas, and before getting a hold of your book, I'd never heard of them. So are they connected to like the Muslim Brotherhood? Is that kind of the root of all these more radical jihadist groups, or are they a splinter group, or are they a unique group that developed independently?
They basically are all the above. They are a splinter group. They are basically, an Islamic Sufi religion, which is more into the mystics of Islam. But they also have a Muslim Brotherhood tax-exempt organization located on their headquarters in Hancock, New York. So, a lot of these Islamist groups, they reach out to each other for a common cause, and Muslims of the Americas is no different. But look, this group, it's been around for a number of years. Sheikh Jilani came to the United States in the 80s through the invitation, by the way, of the CIA to help recruit people for the war in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union. Well, while he was here, he thought, well, what a great idea. The CIA has invited me. They're giving me money to recruit people. Well, what am I going to do with these people after the war is over? Well, I'll put them into American camps. And he started buying up property. One of those properties he bought up was in Buena Vista, Colorado. And in 1992, the Colorado authorities shut down this particular terrorist camp where they found all kinds of ammunition and weapons and bunkers that were, hiding explosives. And they had surveillance photos of military barracks, of water treatment plants, of electrical grids. This particular group in Colorado not only assassinated a rival imam in Tucson, Arizona, by stabbing him 21 times in his mosque, but they actually blew up a power plant in Denver, and they were responsible for a lot of terrorist crimes. It's been around for quite some time, but they just continue to grow. I spoke to an undercover informant for the NYPD who contacted me after our film came out and said, look, I've been in this group for 8 years as an undercover informant for the NYPD, and I want to tell you exactly what's going on inside of these camps. And he flat out says he's given enough information over to the NYPD of their violent crimes and of their gun smuggling, of their drug running, and their other white-collar crimes, that if the NYPD wanted to, they could turn this information over to FBI and have these camps shut down at any time. They're a very violent group. They're here in America, and apparently they're here to stay.
So why wouldn't the feds shut these groups down?
Well, there's a lot of political correctness going on here, and you could actually run an entire program of all the reasons we've gotten from law enforcement as to why they do not shut them down, and it's kind of hard to synopsize. But law enforcement, let's put it this way, law enforcement in general is to enforce the law. They are not there to protect you. They are there to go arrest people after crimes happen. So by and large, they wait until these individuals commit crimes. And then when they commit the crimes, they go arrest those people and they put them in jail, but they leave the head alone because they're not really there to investigate things and shut them down. The one that did get shut down in Buena Vista, Colorado, the lead investigator there, her name was Susan Fenger. It took her a year and a half to put all the paperwork, all the research together, all the crimes that this group had committed, including workman compensation crimes, assassinations, and bombings, before she finally had enough that she could actually move against this group in Colorado, raid it with 102 Colorado agents, and shut it down. She said, at that time, she told Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, you have the same problem going over there. If you just follow my lead, you can shut them down in Pennsylvania as well. And she told me, she said, look, the response back from the investigators in Philadelphia was, it's too much work, we're going to leave them alone.
Talking to Martin Mawyer, M-A-W-Y-E-R, author of Twilight in America, subtitled The Untold Story of Islamic Terrorist Training Camps Inside America. But what you're saying is, though, that at least our law enforcement or the FBI, they have knowledge of these people.
They do have knowledge of them. The NYPD obviously has some undercover agents inside of these compounds. There's a big controversy as to why they don't shut down the ones in New York. I'm not sure we should get into it here, but just let me make it brief. The undercover informant told me that it was to the NYPD's advantage to help this group establish similar camps in foreign countries such as Venezuela, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, so that the NYPD could have ears and eyes in foreign countries to see if there were any impending attacks on their city. Well, if the NYPD is going to help this group set up foreign camps in foreign countries, the last thing you want to do is shut down the ones in America, because if they shut them down here, they lose their ears and eyes overseas. So, it's very complicated as to why law enforcement does or does not act against this group, but there you have it. They are still a very dangerous group, and they continue to train, and their goal is to wage a holy war on America.
Martin, one of the things as over the last several years, foreign policy discussions ongoing about what to do with Iran's nuclear program. One of the things that I had read on a number of occasions.
Joe Biden says, don't worry about it, man.
Don't worry.
Take a deep breath. Quit worrying about that. Excuse me, I'm sorry
No,
to be so facetious.
you know, one of the things they said, well, we need to attack those. If we did, then Iran would shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And one of the other things that was kicked around was that one of the options for Iran, should we, or even with Israel, attack some of these plants, is that sleeper cells in the United States could wreak havoc were we to attack Iran physically. Would that be in conjunction with some of these Muslims of the Americas groups? Is that what that was a reference to, that these groups would then go out and blow up power plants and poison water supply inside the United States?
Well, you know, their headquarters in Hancock, New York, sits on a rather large water reservoir that feeds the city of New York City. And there has always been suspicion that they may poison that. Now, whether that is real or not real, I really cannot say. But one FBI agent did tell us that the reason why they don't go after these camps is because the leader is in Pakistan. And that Pakistani guy, his name's Sheikh Jalani, is so powerful in Pakistan that they go after these American camps, they will lose the relationship with Pakistan. And right now, America needs Pakistan in the war against the Taliban and other terrorist activity going overseas. They don't want to interfere with that relationship. So every time the FBI gets ready to move, local officials, local FBI agents get ready to move against these camps, they're told from headquarters to knock it off because they just can't afford to ruin that relationship that America has with Pakistan. So whether you agree with this political strategy, this investigative law enforcement strategy or not, I guess everyone can have their own opinion. But I think anyone that, if you go to these areas where these camps exist and talk to the neighbors there and let them tell you what's going on inside of these camps, you will walk away going, law enforcement strategy is pretty ridiculous. America should go and shut these camps down. Look, the girls on these camps, they have children on these camps who are getting no education whatsoever. They refuse to educate the girls on these camps. They're engaged in polygamous marriages. Well, let's throw polygamous marriages out right now. Just think about the young girls there who they refuse to educate because in their Muslim world, girls are not allowed to have a formal education.
Mark, where are these? Name 4 or 5 places where these camps exist.
Sure. York, South Carolina. They're in Red House, Virginia. Dover, Tennessee. They're in Hancock, New York. Commerce, Georgia. Sweeney, Texas. And the list goes on. They're in Michigan. They're in Colorado. Some of these camps are bigger than others. Some of them are, for instance, the one in Hancock, it sits on 80 acres. The one in Red House, Virginia, sits on 25 acres. But they also had one in California called Balladula. It sat on 300 acres of land and actually had a landing strip on it. But it was eventually closed because the leader of that camp had built the state of California out over $1.3 million in a fake charter school program that she was operating. She went to the state and said, look, I'm setting up these Islamic charter schools. And come to find out, 2 years into it, that the schools did not exist. They were simply making up attendance records, giving them over to the state, and taking their money. That leader eventually went to jail, and everybody in that particular camp dispersed to other locations. So they're basically a criminal empire.
Yeah. I do think you're right that the political correctness plays a part in the, in how we go look at these things in terms of being a law enforcement issue.
Well, the Fort Hood shooting,
I mean, because, we don't want to be seen as being Islamophobic.
Right.
So we don't do things that we normally would do because we don't want to be accused of that in this heightened political correctness country that we live in. I will say this. I think the FBI, from all accounts, has been doing an excellent job in preventing jihad attacks on the U.S. In the last 10 years.
Right.
Because, we haven't seen one, number one. Number two is you see them busted in the news. At least once every 6 months or so, you'll see some jihadist busted by the FBI. Now, they're not going to be able to stop all of them. Eventually, they're going to hit again.
Right.
But anyway, Well, listen, Martin, I don't know whether to thank you or I don't know what to say here. I'm just kidding. I thank you for your information.
Well, I appreciate it. Let me just one final word. These camps are now beginning to set up their own government inside of the cities that they exist in. The one in Hancock, New York, even though it's an illegal government, they operate under Sharia law. They have a mayor there. They have a deputy mayor there. They have 5 council members there, and none of them are elected. They enforce Sharia law on the people that live there, and if you violate any of those laws, they take you out to a tree, they tie you to it, and whip you on it.
Hey, Martin, we're out of time. What is your website?
ChristianAction.org, and they can also get the book through Amazon, Twilight in America.
Martin Mawyer, M-A-W-Y-E-R. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Folks, that's it for the day. Dr. David Jeremiah's Bible teaching program, Turning Point, is straight ahead.
You've been listening to Today's Issue